You've heard from Sports Lab Overtime, this week in Gator Sports with Jeremy St. Louis, Sports Scene, and Jeff and Pat on Tailgate. Now it's time to bring it all together. This is This Week in Gator Sports, your extra coverage and insider look at everything in Gator Nation. From all of our WRUF beat reporters who have been working hard to bring you the best coverage in Gainesville. I'm Shamar Woods. Welcome to Overtime.
Florida has defeated two different number one ranked teams in the same season.
And the Gators beat number one 2 out of 3 games.
And the Gators take down number one. What a way to cap the regular season.
Okay, let's do this. Let's get this thing underway. Here come the Gators.
All right, listen to me, man. This game is meant to be played a certain way, okay? I played the game, and I played the game for the guys that I played it with. My guys! Everybody got it? Yes, sir. And I want you to play it the same way. Some things are worth fighting for. And the men in this room are worth fighting for, man. You got me? The work that you put in, the relationships you have. All right, let's go out here and let's take pride in how hard we play. Let's get back to the basics. Go play harder than they play. Hey. Take pride in how you compete.
Don't take it.
Some things are worth fighting for, man. All right, let's go fight. Everybody good here?
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go. Team on 3. 1, 2, 3.
We're opening up here on Twigs Overtime, and we are joined by our Gators football beat team, Nick Abreu and Tori Kitchens. What a week, guys. Yeah. What a win this week, Saturday, against Texas. Let's kick it off. Nick, let's start with you. What were your biggest takeaways from Saturday's win?
Yeah, I think it's a big win. I like we said, I got my prediction right last week.
You got it right.
I picked the Gators to beat Texas. They actually won by more than I thought, so props to the Gators. But yeah, really good game from them. I think on both sides of the ball, this is the first game we actually were able to see the offense really move down the field with some momentum. I think one of the big keys to the game, the third downs. Against Miami, that was the worst game we've ever seen on third downs from them. They went 0 for 13, and then they were able to dominate third downs on both sides of the ball against Texas, which is one of the big reasons why they were able to come out with the win.
Nick, what gave you so much confidence heading into this matchup against Texas? How did you predict that 2017 win last week here on Twigs OT?
I just wasn't confident in Texas. They didn't really give me anything in the first month of the season. Like they didn't have any strong performances that worried me. All I saw from them was Art struggling a little bit. Yeah, their defense was good, but they didn't play anyone too tough. So all I saw was weakness in their offense, in their young QB coming into his first away game in the SEC. I saw a chance for them to make some noise, rattle a young QB, and to really capitalize on that. And I think we saw some of these similarities with LSU, who were barely able to beat the Gators in a game that the Gators had no offensive production. So I thought if they could even do a little bit, they could come out with a win, and that's exactly what happened.
Let's toss it over to Tori. Tori, how much do you think this win changes the conversation around head coach Billy Napier and his job security right now?
I think this only gives athletic director Scott Strickland more confidence in Napier. I think his firing is inevitable unless he wins out the next 2 seasons straight. But it definitely pushes it back for now. It just kind of validates Strickland's thoughts about him this whole time. Gator Nation isn't going to let off the gas. It's already evident that even though he won, all of the comments on his press conference on Monday were fire Billy. So I think that that's just going to we're going to have to see how that plays out. It's inevitable at some point. Just pushes it back just a tad.
All right, let's switch gears here. SEC Player of the Week honors for that performance, for that upset of Texas last Saturday. Three Gators made SEC all-conference honors. Starting off with DJ Lagway, SEC Offensive Player of the Week. Dallas Wilson, SEC Freshman Player of the Week. Good to see him for the first time this season. And then on special teams, Taylor Spierto, SEC Coast Special Teams Player of the Week. Let's start with you, Nick, and DJ Lagway. DJ Lagway, of course, he certainly played more like himself, right? Mm-hmm. And so what did you see from him that earned his honor this week?
Yeah, I think, like you said, we saw some of that DJ Lagway that we saw from him last year that made the entire fan base fall in love and think that he was a Heisman candidate this year. And obviously fell flat in the first couple of weeks and got back to it now. 298 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's the kind of things we want to see. And I think one guy in specific was probably a big reason for that. Dallas Wilson coming into this offense was amazing. Being able to be that X factor, that jump ball receiver, being able to really open up the deep passing game that Lagway is so proficient in last year. That was something that was kind of missing from the offense entirely over the first month of the season. So having that 55-yard touchdown in the second half, and also I think something that was a little under the radar, Jaden Ball being able to get that run game going with 27 carries, I think was really important for DJ Lagway's intermediate passing, which is something that we talked about as lacking over the past few weeks. So I think being able to give Ball 27 carries and see success over 100 yards rushing for him and that touchdown in the first quarter, I think that was really able to open up those guys in the middle like Vernell Brown, like J. Michael Sturdivant, to have some of those slant routes get open and for DJ Lagway to get more comfortable in those intermediate routes and not have to rely so much on those 1-2 yards even behind the line of scrimmage dump offs that really weren't working in the first half of the year.
Nick, you mentioned Dallas Wilson, and switching over to Torrey now. Want to switch over gears, and Torrey had a story that ran Tuesday on Dallas Wilson and his record-breaking debut in the SEC this week. Of course, sat out the first 4 games, had the lower body injury. What stood out most to you about his performance Saturday?
His confidence as a freshman. I think that how he was pushing down players on that 55-yard touchdown was actually insane. But just how sure of his talents he is already as a young player. He said he let his talent take over on that play, and I think that that's a really cool thing for such a young player to say. Also, his size is a pretty big deal too. Lagway and Billy Napier both called him a specimen and a creature when referring to him on the field. So I think that it's only going to get better from here. And this is just the start for Dallas Wilson, and it's going to be a really fun watch the next little while.
Without question. Sticking with the ball with you, Torrey. Let's switch gears to Taylor Spierto, SEC Coast Special Teams Player of the Week. His story's a fun one. Former walk-on, now scholarship player, and now Coast Special Teams Player of the Week. What did you make of that black punt play?
I think that was probably one of, if not the biggest plays of the entire game. It got the crowd right back into it. It was super exciting. I remember just my jaw was on the floor. It was just really cool to watch. I think that it also motivated the special teams and defense even more than they already were. They were super pumped up after it, and it just was able to help contribute to the offense and their success as well.
Nick, we talk about culture, right? And when you talk about what Napier is looking to build here, now in his 4th year, seeing walk-ons make that kind of impact, what do you take away?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why you'd maybe advocate for Billy Napier. One of the reasons why Scott Strickland loves Billy Napier is because of that culture that he builds. He really creates kind of a family in this group, and that's why he's so good at recruiting. All these players will die for him. They will put their hearts on the line in the game, and they'll play their hearts out for him. And we saw that last year when his job was on the line. We saw it against Texas with his job also on the line. So I think having a walk-on be able to make such an impact, especially on special teams, that's a big deal because they don't get a lot of chances. So their chances are going to be on special teams to make an impact. And for him to have the confidence to make that play, not pout that he's not getting playing time on the field other than special teams, and to make a big play that really impacted the game, it shows how Billy Napier instills that confidence in the team that everyone matters. It's not just the stars. It's not just DJ Lagway. It's not just Dallas Wilson. Every little part of the team matters. It's a 3-phase game, and special teams is part of that.
Switching gears here. Now, we talked about the offense. We talked about special teams. Now let's talk about the defense. Of course, they've been playing strong all season long when it comes to this Gators team, keeping them in games. What clicked for them in this group, Nick?
On
What
defense.
clicked for the defense?
On defense, yes.
Saturday.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I was really impressed by was the secondary play. I think that was one of the things I was a little bit worried about. I actually wrote an article for WRUF earlier last week talking about how that they're going to have to step up with all the injuries to that secondary that they took in that Miami game. Dijon Johnson's out for the year. Aaron Gates is going to be out for an extended period of time. So those younger guys who don't have as much experience, like Sharif Denson, like Cormani McClain, were going to really be the guys that had to step up, and I think they did that. I think Devin Moore especially, he's one of those veterans that is still in the lineup, and he had a monster game. I mean, that one drive where he was able to get the sack on the cornerback blitz, and then the same drive later get an interception. I think he had an amazing game that really changed the tide, and I think Cormani McClain had a little bit of a rough game. Maybe he was beat on a couple routes. Arch missed some throws that maybe you wouldn't get in some other games. But overall, the defense as a whole, especially that secondary, being able to step up against a strong Texas team. Like obviously they're unranked now, but they coming into this game, Arch Manning's still the top quarterback recruit of his class. He's still a really good prospect. So being able to shut them down like that is really impressive in my eyes.
Absolutely. Now, Tori, Nick touched on the defense as a whole, touched on the secondary. When you look at this defense, 6 sacks, 2 picks, 8 quarterback hurries. What changed schematically or mentally this week?
I think that more than anything, it was mental. They knew that their coach, his spot in this program was on the line. Their pride was on the line more than anything. They were 1-3. There's not much else could have gone wrong before the Texas game for them. So I think just that change in mentality really motivated them to say, okay, we've got to put a stop now. We got to stop it early. And they did just that. And I think that it can only get better from here.
I was going to ask, do you think that this defensive energy is something they can sustain, or is this more of a one-game surge?
I think that they can definitely sustain it. I think that it just needs to be the offense that keeps up with that mentality, that keeps up with the energy that the defense has had all season. I think that they were pretty solid before the Texas game on defense and just got even stronger before this one, and they'll be able to keep that up as long as the mentality stays the same. They don't get complacent, and the offense has to follow suit in that to be able to win.
All right, we'll keep the ball with you, Tori. This is a long drive for you. Now, you have a weekly scouting report that comes out every Thursday. Be sure to check it out on WRUF.com. So, scouting Texas A&M. Of course, they're the number 5 team in the country. The Aggies ran for nearly 300 yards last week. How does Florida's defense match up against that ground game?
I'm confident in it. I think that the biggest thing that they're going to have to do is get the tackles behind the line of scrimmage, tackles for loss. They had 7 last week against Texas, and that's definitely something that they're going to have to continue to do if they want to force three and outs, allow their offense to get back on the field. And they have a really good run game over in College Station, and I think that being in their home stadium as well is definitely going to help them, and the defense is going to have to adjust to not being in the swamp to be able to make the stop.
Now, Nick, Florida's only allowed 607 rushing yards all year. How big of a test will this be for that front 7?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a huge test. I think this is kind of where we really see where this defense lies. I think it's clear they're one of the top defenses in the country, but they've struggled against teams with dual threat quarterbacks this season. You saw Byron Brown of USF. He came into the swamp and dismantled the Gators, and that was kind of really the wake-up call for them this year. He had around 80 rushing yards and almost 20 rushes in that game. And he's able to kind of create these methodical drives that waste clock and really demoralize a team, especially in a close game like it was against USF. And then, like we saw against Texas, Arch Manning, really where he did a lot of his damage, was on the ground. He was able to rush for 40 yards against the Gators and extend some drives that way. So Marcel Reed is kind of one of those quarterbacks that can do that to you, especially with that two-headed monster at running back that they have. The Gators are really going to have to find a way not just to stop those running backs at the line of scrimmage, but to find a way to stay on top of them and manage Marcel Reed from extending plays in the pocket and maybe making some work with his legs. So we'll see what the Gators can do, and it's going to be a good test to see how good they are and how adaptable they can be.
Nick, keep the ball with you.
Yep.
When you look at this Texas A&M defense, boy, it's a strong one. 18 sacks this season compared to Florida's 9. How critical will pass protection be for DJ Lagway this weekend?
Yeah, I think the offensive line is probably going to be one of the marquee matchups of this game. On the other side, Texas A&M has Cassius Howell, insane defensive end. He's really one of those game breakers that you hate to see on the other side of the line. He has 7 sacks, leads the SEC in sacks this year so far. He had 3 in their last game against Mississippi State. So he's going to be one that you really want to limit. It's kind of similar to what we saw against Miami with Ruben Bain. Ruben Bain is a game breaker that really was able to put pressure on Lagway the whole game, kind of tore apart that offensive line, made them look a little bit childish. So hopefully if they've learned anything from that Miami game, it's how to stop one of those game breakers, and they're going to have to do that on Saturday against Texas A&M and Cassius Howell.
Tori, how about you? What's one matchup you're watching most closely in this game Saturday?
I want to see how the Texas A&M secondary does with Dallas Wilson. He is a strong runner down the field. Obviously pushed down those players against Texas, and I think that will also be interesting to see how he does against a new squad and away from his home stadium as well.
All right, prediction time.
All right.
Prediction time. Now, Nick, we'll start with you. Of course, you were right last week with your 20-17 prediction that the Gators are going to win. Score a little bit different there. So let's get your prediction first for Saturday's game. Who wins and what kind of game are we in for in College Station?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me to predict. I've been kind of back and forth for a long time because major storyline. I wrote about this recently on WRUF. DJ Lagway is going home. This is a big game for him. He's kind of he went to high school 60 miles away from College Station. So it's one of those games where he's going to have all his family, his friends there. He's playing a lot of players that he played against in high school. So it's a big game for him. But I think it's going to be tough to stop Texas A&M. That offense is explosive. They're 6th in the country in yards per completion. So they get the ball downfield. Their receivers, Casey Concepcion, he's a dog. That's how I can describe him. So Marcel Reed getting the ball downfield with that rushing attack. It's going to be hard to stop. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think the Gators will have a shot in this game. I don't know if they cover the spread, though. I think it'll be probably a 2-score win for Texas A&M. I'm going to go with a 30-20 scoreline for the Aggies.
All right. Obviously, the football in the back, they didn't agree with you as it fell off the shelf over there. Tori, we're going to switch things over to you. How do you see it playing out? Close finish, or do the Gators find a way to pull it out?
I think that I've been going back and forth on score. I'm confident that Texas A&M is going to win. I think that the swamp is what really helped Florida against Texas. So I think that in College Station is obviously a really hard place to play. So I think that I'm very confident that Texas A&M is going to win. Then again, I was confident that Texas was going to win last week, but I was wrong. So I think that it's going to be 35-21, Texas A&M.
All right. Both of you guys picking against the Gators this week.
Yeah, it's tough.
When you look at it this weekend, obviously you have a lot of big-time players, big-time matchups. Give me your one X factor. One X factor. One player, one position group. What are you watching for Saturday? Nick, start with you.
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind, we kind of talked about this a little bit, is that offensive line, being able to stop Cassius Howell, being able to protect the quarterback, allowing DJ Lagway to have a game like he did against Texas. I think confidence is one of those big factors for him. So making sure that he's protected, he has a clean pocket, giving him time to throw. I think that's what's going to allow the Gator offense to ultimately keep up with such a high-powered offense that we have with Texas A&M.
Tori, bring us home. Your one X factor for Saturday.
Defensive line, Tyreek Sapp.
Trenches.
He's going to need to He's going to need to pull out all the stops. He had 6 tackles against Texas. He's going to need to do the same thing for the Gators against Texas A&M. This was really his breakout game against Texas so far this season, and he's going to need to keep that momentum going if he and his defense have any chance of making a stop to the A&M offense.
All right, we'll see if your predictions are right. Of course, those were our WRUF beat reporters on the football beat. Tori Kitchens, Nick Abreu, thank you so much for coming on to Twigs Overtime to share your perspective. Be sure to check out all their work on WRUF.com. They'll have coverage leading up to Saturday's game against Texas A&M, as well as post-game coverage, and then coverage throughout the week. Tori, Nick, thank you.
The Gators traditional today, the orange helmet with the blue Gator script, blue jerseys with the white letters and numbers, and the white pants trimmed in the orange and blue here in front of a sold-out crowd. The 15th straight sellout at
Let's get into a little bit of soccer now. We are here with Macy Mice and Hunter Zabarski. We're talking after the Texas matchup, ahead of a big one against Mississippi State as well. Macy, of course, covered the game for WRUF.com. What did you see from that Texas win on Sunday?
Well, lots of nail biters, I will say. You know, soccer was looking for their first SEC win, which they did get. Big standouts, definitely Kai Chakiris. She's been crazy with her penalty kicks. It's been super awesome. And for the game to go from, a win when they've had a history of a lot of draws, it's been really great for the team. Lots of aggression. I like to say that the Gators sent the Longhorns out to pasture, so it was pretty cool. And I will say definitely a fun recap to write where you can see on WRUF.com. But yeah, Hunter, do you have any takeaways? I know you watched it as well.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking from a defensive standpoint, this season, going into the season's practically an entirely new back line, and there's a lot of communication that has to go into that. I think you saw that on the Texas goal when the Texas player kind of got lost a little bit from the Florida defenders, and she was right in front of the goal all alone. And I know people watch soccer and think it's such a big open field. How do you lose someone like that? Well, it's actually easier than people think. So definitely communication, something the team needs to work on. And from a defensive standpoint, it starts with the goalie, Paloma Pena. Ever since that South Carolina game, she's been the team's number one. She's played the entirety of the matches, which earlier in the season they switched between the two goalies. Now she's kind of won that starting job for Florida.
Now going to Bohan, what did Bohan say after that game Sunday against Texas? Of course, the Gator soccer team coming off of Saturday's win with the Gators football team. They also beat Texas. So it was a Texas sweep. What did Bohan have to say? Macy?
So it was really interesting because in her post-game interviews, she talked a lot about, she had a lot of comparisons with Billy Napier. And on our beat team, David Lopez wrote a comparison story as well, kind of talking about that. Really interesting for them to kind of talk about, finally getting that potential to pop. And that's what both teams did this week. Kind of ironic it happened both with Texas, one at home, one away. So good to see that the Gators were able to beat Texas either way. But what other takeaways do you have, Hunter?
Well, every SEC win you get, you have to celebrate. It's really hard to win in the SEC. So I think credit to the Gators for getting their first win against the season. Maybe Texas struggled this year, but they did really good job last season. So I think just celebrating the victory and, of course, beating Texas twice in one weekend, you can't really be upset about that one, eh?
I will say, too, lots of firsts for the Gators. Abby Gemma for soccer scored her first collegiate goal. She's now the 10th Gator to do this season. And then talk about Dallas Wilson, too. Talk about these raw freshmen really coming in with this true freshman talent. Really, really good weekend for the Gators, I will say.
Absolutely. Big win. They're trying to make it 2 in a row this Friday. Of course, Mississippi State up next. Macy, what kind of challenge do the Bulldogs bring to the table?
I will say it'll be an interesting game for sure. Coming off their first SEC win after many draws, it'll be difficult for sure. Mississippi State, I believe, is ranked 3rd in soccer at the moment, so I think it'll be a really tough game for them. Trying to get that win, of course, moving on to tougher and tougher matches. And Bohan said they're still kind of getting into their groove, things like that, and being able to do that at home on their home pitch after being away would definitely be an interesting dynamic.
Hunter.
Yeah, I think third in the SEC for Mississippi State. But last season they were 10-0 in conference play. Didn't lose to do in the SEC, and going into their first game of conference play this year, they beat the number one team. Well, at the moment, the number one team, Tennessee, 3-2. And looking at the defensive stats for Mississippi State, in their last game they gave up 4 goals. They lost 4-2 to Arkansas. In the previous 5 games in SEC play, they'd only given up 3 total goals, 2 of those to Tennessee. So I think for Florida, just being able to get past their defensive line is going to be a real struggle. This is a really good Mississippi State team.
Sticking with this game Friday, of course, Gator soccer playing against Mississippi State on Friday. It's going to be senior night, right? And so certainly the last home game for Gator soccer ahead of a potential postseason berth. But sticking with this game, who is your key player and why? This question is for both of you. Macy.
Gotcha. It's difficult for me to choose, I will say. I'll probably have to say Kai Chikaris. Like, she's been nuts, again, with, like, her agility, her aggression. It's obvious. You see people out in the stands. Like, I know we'll be standing on the sidelines just listening, and I just hear the audience behind me like, wow, she's fierce. Like, she's confident. Like, she's strong, really aggressive. And I think that kind of aggression is something this Gators team really needs, especially going into Friday's game.
Hunter.
Yeah, I'm taking, I guess this has been deemed Zabarski's Z factors now. David Lopez is, wanted me to say that, but I'm taking another freshman. It's going to be Addie Hess. I picked her to score in the Kentucky game, and she did. So it ain't broke. I'm going to go with her again, and that's something my recap or my story, my feature story going on the website today was all about the freshmen and the impact they've had. So what does that mean? That means recruiting. This team has struggled in the past. How have they gotten such talent in this 2025 class? Not only that, but the 2026 class. I spoke to Lael Hill, daughter of Grant Hill, about what she's looking forward to and coming to campus, and as well Ben Chase, the NIL director, just like what sets Florida apart in recruiting for women's soccer and how they've been able to succeed so well in that department.
Awesome. Be sure to check out Hunter Zabarski's story on WRUF.com, of course, an inside look at Gator soccer recruiting. Be sure to check that out. Now, after Friday's game against Mississippi State, of course, there are only 3 games left in the season. As it currently stands right now, Gator soccer is right on the edge of a postseason berth, right at that number 12 seed in the SEC Conference. What needs to happen moving forward after Friday's game for the next 3 games for them to make an SEC tournament appearance? Macy.
And I think Bohan talked about this a lot in her post-game press conferences and just interviews and things like that. She talks about, again, the aggression and connecting. A lot of times they'll have opportunities, they'll have chances, and they don't necessarily get the opportunity to either to them, or they don't have the aggression to do so. I also think it's really interesting, too. Hunter, I know you asked a question once about the new formation she's been having. I think that's played a big role in these past few games recently. What insight do you have on that?
Well, she told me, wouldn't you like to know? So she didn't give me any insight. Yeah, I think what Macy's saying, and Coach Bohan always says, we take it game by game. They have two ranked opponents, Mississippi State, Tennessee, a really good Tennessee team. So I think the key for them, you can't really ask if this Florida team to go into Knoxville and blow Tennessee out of the water. I think the key for them is the LSU and Ole Miss games that they should be winning. If you win those games, you're more than likely in.
All right, you've heard from Macy Mice and Hunter Zabarski, and thank you guys so much for coming on to Twigs Overtime to talk a little bit about Gator sports. Be sure to check out all their coverage on WRUF.com. They're covering the beat inside and out, and we'll have coverage throughout the season. So make sure you check it out on WRUF.com. Macy, Hunter, thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you.
Gators have 2 first downs on the opening drive. Brown motions. Jet sweep, got room to run, turns around the left edge, 40 to the far sideline, shoved out of bounds, deep into the Texas bench at the 36. First down, Gators.
Now Now let's switch over to volleyball, where we are joined by our WRUF volleyball beat reporter, Charlie Jones, once again joining us here on Twigs OT. Be sure to check out his coverage as well as the rest of the beat team's coverage on Gators volleyball right on WRUF.com. Now, Charlie, let's start with the big headline here. For the first time since 1991, Gators volleyball not ranked in the top 25. How surprising is that? And what does it say about where this program is right now?
First of all, thanks again for having me. And second of all, I think we just need to take a breath and kind of realize that headline. Okay, now that everyone has gotten over being shocked, yes, Florida drops out of the AVCA top 25 for the first time since 1991. That's 556 in-season weeks. A little bit crazy. But after the weekend, it is not as much of a shock. A 1-1 split against two SEC teams, one at home, one on the road, and they drop out for the first time. There is a path back, so don't hit the panic button just yet. You got to stick around and wait it out with this team, but a tough weekend, no doubt, for Ryan Tyson.
Now take us through the progression here. How do we get here?
Yeah, so season started off with the AVCA First Serve Showcase, taking on some of the top teams in the nation. First two matches were Stanford and Pitt. I mean, look, when you face juggernauts like that in the sport who are consistent year after year, strong teams, it's going to be a tough start. They actually split. They moved up to their best ranking of the season, number 11, because of that Pitt win. And that's when things started to kind of slow down a little bit. They lost a couple of unranked matches and matches to teams who are lower on the rankings. They had a sweep against North Carolina on the road, and that was a big turning point. From that point on, the schedule gets a little bit shakier. A match with Wisconsin, a match with Marquette, lost both of those on the road, and they found themselves in an unusual position, trying to fight off falling out of the rankings. Then they entered SEC play. Things did not turn around. They're 2-2 now in SEC play with losses to Mississippi State and LSU. LSU is on the road, both unranked teams, and that is where we are. You know, it's tough when you start off SEC play with a really strong non-conference schedule. You're already a foot behind if you're not able to win those matches, which some of them they weren't. They get into SEC play. They get shocked by Mississippi State at home in 5 sets. They get a little bit of momentum with a win against Alabama and Auburn at home. But then it all came crashing down against LSU in Baton Rouge on Sunday. But there is a road back.
All right. We'll definitely talk about that road later. We're joined by Charlie Jones, of course, our WRUF volleyball beat reporter. You wrote a recap off of the LSU game Sunday against Baton Rouge. Of course, Gators volleyball lost 3-2. What do we expect to see Friday against Missouri? We're going to take it one game at a time. Starting with Friday, what do we expect to see coming off Sunday's loss?
Well, fun little nugget about this matchup. It's the third straight matchup against the Tigers team. So first you had Auburn, then LSU, now moving on to Missouri. The thing with LSU was that I think Florida got caught a little bit off guard. It is a road SEC match, so always going to get that little bit of a boost for the home team. But Journey Robinson has been stellar for LSU the entire season. She's one of the best players in the nation, and she showed why. She had 33 kills against Tennessee in a 5-set loss. She followed that up 2 days later, a new career high, 34 against Florida. Stopping her is a really hard task. Now, Missouri have strong attackers themselves, but not one key star like Journey who can really punish you both defensively, offensively, and from the service line. So I think trying to limit what Missouri can do in all facets of the game, focusing on attacking their back row, making sure you can get them out of system, put them in hard positions, that is when you're going to be able to beat Missouri. It's not necessarily going to be a battle from the service line like we've seen in so many matches this season. What it is going to be a battle of accuracy and side-out percentage. If you can have a better hitting percentage and a better side-out percentage than Missouri, you should be coming away with a win for Florida.
All right, wrapping up here with Charlie Jones, of course, our WRUF Gators volleyball beat reporter. Charlie, let's call it. What's your prediction for Friday against the third straight Tigers team?
Yeah, Missouri is a strong team. Like you mentioned, number 25 in the AVCA top 25. Threatened to fall out. I think this could be the key that Ryan Tice's squad needs. It would put them back at 8-6, 2 games away from that 500 mark, and that is a really nice stepping stone. I think that there's a new intensity and fire with this team, like we saw when they lost to Mississippi State, right? Normally the team will stay out and stretch. They'll try and meet with some fans. Ryan Tice said, no, we're heading straight to the locker room right after the 5-set loss. And what happened after that? 2 straight wins. I think a new fire for this Florida team will help them to a 3-2 victory over the Missouri Tigers. You can't take the Missouri Tigers lightly. They are a ranked team, and they are strong, but I think that this win could get them back on track, and this new intensity that Coach Tice's squad will show will lift them to another victory.
Of course, that was Charlie Jones. I'll take the ball back from you. Great segment. And, of course, be sure to check out all of the coverage from not only Charlie Jones, but also Julianis Ramos and Tori Kitchens on the Gators volleyball beat. You guys have been doing great work all season long. Looking forward to more of your coverage. And, hey, we'll see if the Gators volleyball team can get back on track Friday against Missouri. Charlie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks again for having me.
Opening drive for the Gators. So far, 12 plays, 79 yards. Lagway now comes set in the shotgun. Handed off the ball. Made a man miss the backfield. Cuts, runs to the pylon. Touchdown, Gators! Made a man miss, then got the first down, and then started heading for real estate.
We're back here on Twigs Overtime. We are now joined by our WRUF beat reporters on the Top 25 College Football beat, Jake Hoffman and Morgan Vasquez. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Jake, I'm going to start with you. The latest AP poll is out. Let's talk about the rankings a little bit. Who were the biggest risers and fallers in the latest rankings?
So if we're going to talk about followers, I mean, of course, you got to go to Texas first, previously number 9 and now completely out of the rankings, following their upset loss to Florida 29-21 in the Swamp. The Gators already have 3 losses, Billy Napier and DJ Lagway, great bounce-back game. And coming into the season, Texas was the number 1 team. I don't think anyone expected Arch Manning and Sarkisian to be completely out of the rankings heading into Week 7. But now Texas has 2 losses, and they don't have much room for error. Also, Alabama and Missouri had a great game last week. Alabama jumped up 2 spots to number 8 following their 30-16 victory over Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt dropped 4 spots to number 20. So both teams still remain in the rankings, but after Alabama lost their opening game to FSU, they've definitely been able to bounce back. Quarterback Ty Simpson has been looking sensational. And if he keeps playing like that, then Alabama's going to do what Alabama always does, which is make the playoffs. So,
Morgan, how about you? Biggest risers, biggest fallers in this week's rankings?
I mean, I hate to talk too much about Texas, but, I mean, their fall was just remarkable. I will say I was a little bit shocked to see that Florida got no votes in the AP poll. Did I think that we were going to get ranked off of 1 loss against a shaky-looking Texas team? No. But to not even get 1 vote, that was surprising to see. Yeah, that's all I got for the AP poll today.
Yeah, tying into the 3 ranked teams. When you look at the AP polls, you look at Miami, of course. They are now ranked number 2. And then you look down the bottom of the top 25, South Florida and Florida State rounding out the top 25. Thoughts there?
I mean, Florida State, they came into the season with pretty much no expectations. And they blew everything out of the water with their upset win over Alabama to start off the season. So I think they're ranked being number 25 now. It's going to be tough for them to rise again because they don't play another ranked team. They play SMU, Stanford, and that's pretty much all they got, except Clemson. I think that might be the only team that'll pose a challenge for FSU going forward. Not too much because Dabo Swinney's teams looked a little weak. Cade Klubnik has fallen out of the Heisman conversation entirely. But I don't think that they'll lose another game. They'll probably go 9-3 after they come to the Swamp and lose to the Gators.
All right, prediction time, guys. Predictions for this week. Obviously, we have some top 25 games happening this weekend, taking place. Who wants to start off predictions? We're going to start with Indiana, Oregon. Morgan, Jake, who wants the first pick here?
I got the ball, but
Take it.
I think it's hard to bet against Oregon, especially if you beat Penn State in a whiteout. That was a huge win for them. And, yeah, I'm going with the Ducks. How about you, Jake?
I mean, the Ducks are home this week. They're number 3 against number 7 Indiana, a Big Ten rival. I mean, Oregon's been looking great so far this year. I mean, the quarterback play from Dante Moore is just unbelievable as of now. And Oregon is 7.5-point favorites. I think Indiana may cover that spread, but I think the Ducks are going to come out on top.
All right, guys, next game, Bama, Missouri. Bama favored by 3.5 points. Jake will keep the ball right there with you. Your prediction.
I know Missouri's home, but like I've said, quarterback Ty Simpson has looked absolutely flawless. I think Alabama's going to come out this weekend with a win, and I think they're going to cover the 3.5. I know Missouri's home. I know they've looked good, but I think Bama's the way better team. Bama rises in big moments when they need to. I think the Crimson Tide are going to come home with a win.
All right, Morgan.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that take. Bama has been looking much stronger since they opened their season poorly, and I think they're going to keep rising.
All right, moving on to the next game in the SEC, Georgia at Auburn. The Bulldogs, 3.5-point favorites at Auburn. Morgan, your pick.
I mean, Auburn is unranked. Georgia is, what'd you say, number 6? I'm going to go with the Bulldogs. I hate to root for the Bulldogs, but they looked really strong against Alabama. Even they took the L, but it was a close game. So I'm going with the Bulldogs.
All right, Jake.
I'm going to take the other side here. Auburn's at home. They're 3.5-point underdogs. I think they're going to come out with the upset win. I mean, Georgia's had a great season. Of course, 2 notorious SEC programs going at it. It's going to be a classic game. Fans are going to enjoy it. I think it's going to be a close one. But I think Auburn really needs this win to kind of save their season. They've lost to Oklahoma. They don't have much margin for error. If they lose this one, I think their season could be done. Their backs are against the wall. I think Auburn's going to pull off the upset win.
All right, Jake picking against Morgan over here. We'll see what happens. Last one, guys, the Red River rivalry, Oklahoma at Texas. Oklahoma favored by 1.5 points. Jake, who you got?
Similar to what I said about Auburn. I mean, I like Texas this week. Last week, their offensive line played against the Gators D-line that was one of the worst ranked in the country, and the Gators had 6 sacks. They had a bunch of pressures. Texas didn't look good. But, I mean, they got a great coaching staff over there. Arch Manning, while he's a third-year quarterback, he was on the bench for 2 years. He got to see everything. He knows what a big moment looks like, and I mean, if Texas loses this game, they're going to be done. Going from number 1 in the AP poll to, by week 7, almost having no chance to make the playoff would be shocking. And I just don't see that happening. I think Texas is going to pull this one off.
All right, Morgan, take us home.
All right, I'm going to bet against Jake on this one again. I normally love to root for an underdog, but Texas is not. They look so shaky. Arch is crumbling under the pressure. I hate to say it. Oklahoma's going to take this one at home or away.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see. And, of course, be joined by our WRUF Top 25 AP college football reporters, Morgan and Jake. Thank you so much for coming on Twigs Overtime. Be sure to check out all their coverage on WRUF.com. We'll have the latest poll rankings for you on Monday morning on WRUF.com. Jake, Morgan, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ball motions on the backfield, now trips left.
We're going to take a shot here, Lagway. Lyons fires down the right side. Wilson's got it.
35, 20, 15, spins off the tackler at the 15, inside the 10, drags him into the end zone. Touchdown, Gators!
All right, now let's switch gears. We have our NFL beat reporters on WRUF.com, Riley Ortz and Dalton Salines here to break down the week 5 power rankings, as well as talk some fantasy and our week 6 predictions. Dalton, let's start with you. Of course, you wrote the story this week on the Week 5 Power Rankings. Which Florida made the biggest move this week?
So yeah, moving up the rankings is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've now reached 4-1, defeated the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday night. They moved up 7 spots all the way up to my number 6 team in the power rankings. They are on fire right now. Devin Lloyd, a guy I talked about last week, had the pick 6. It was awesome to see that, but they're moving up in my power rankings. Now on the flip side of that, we have the Miami Dolphins. They dropped 3 spots down to 28 after yet another loss, this time to the Carolina Panthers. They have been spiraling out of control, and I don't know if the end's in sight for that fall.
Now for our fantasy football listeners, Riley, who's the player you think you can confidently throw into your lineup for Week 6?
I mean, last week was a bit of a surprise with Trevor Lawrence. He showed out on his 26th birthday. He ended with 26.2 fantasy points. He had a touchdown through the air and then 2 on the ground, including the game winner. So I don't know, with that Seattle defense and that shootout last week with the Bucs, it could happen for Lawrence again.
Dalton, how about you? Got a sleeper or breakout candidate that you like this week?
How about a guy that's broken out before but could break back out this year? He hasn't done it yet. Chris Godwin. He's back with the Buccaneers playing wide receiver. Last week was a down week. I expect a bit of a bounce back for him this week. I think he could have a very dominant performance against the 49ers defense in what could be a bit of a higher scoring game.
All right, Riley. Now, I know you're working on the preview for Week 6 of our NFL slate. We'll have that story for you guys tomorrow on RUF.com. Break down this week's games for us.
First of all, looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I just mentioned them. They came out firing on all cylinders last Sunday against the Seattle Seahawks, picked up their 4th win. This week they're back in Tampa against the San Francisco 49ers. And I expect the Bucs to come out firing on all cylinders once again. I have them beating the Niners 24-17. So we'll see if Baker Mayfield can put up another 379 passing yards, which was pretty high total for him. And then, like Dalton said, I don't know what's happening with the Dolphins, but they're hosting the Chargers on Sunday. Their defense last week was abysmal, to say at the best. They allowed 239 rushing yards to a Chuba Hubbard-less Carolina Panthers. And I have them losing to the Chargers 28-17. And then looking at the last Florida game of the week, I have Jacksonville staying down in Florida and beating the Seattle Seahawks 24-21. I think Trevor Lawrence can stay hot.
Dalton, is there anything else to watch for this weekend?
I can tell you I got burned by the Seahawks last week, but I'm doubling down. I think Seattle takes down the Jaguars. I have it 38-24. I expect Jackson Smith-Njigba, wide receiver for the Seahawks, to have a really big game against this Jaguars passing defense. With the Buccaneers 49ers, I agree with what Riley said. The 49ers have been banged up this year. So many injuries. I talked about in my power rankings how many players they've missed. I expect the Buccaneers to be able to take advantage of that and come out with a victory. And in the Chargers-Dolphins game, Justin Herbert has looked bad the last 2 weeks. I expect this week to be a big bounce back for him against a Dolphins secondary that has been atrocious, to put it nicely. I think the Chargers blow the brakes off of the Dolphins this week, and I think that they will probably have the biggest margin of victory in the NFL this week.
All right, guys. Of course, this is Twigs Overtime. So before we end, give us your hot takes. Dalton.
My hot take comes from the Jaguars-Seahawks game. I just said I like the Seahawks to win. How about a hot take for the Jaguars? Tight end Johnny Munt will score a touchdown. Brenton Strange has gone onto the IR. Somebody needs to step up. Johnny Munt is my pick to score a touchdown for the Jaguars this week.
Riley.
My hot take for the week is, while I don't expect the Dolphins to win this week, I think defensive tackle Zach Sealer will show out. He'll have his first sack of the season, and I think we could see a defensive score from a pretty beat-up Chargers offensive line. The defensive tackle signed a 3-year, $64 million extension in the offseason. I think this is a breakout game.
All right, Riley, we'll keep the ball right there. Now, you and Dalton, you guys have been going back and forth with your weekly picks and your predictions. Riley, where does it stand right now heading into Week 6?
Well, I went 1-2 last week, unfortunately, which puts me at 10-5 on the season. Dalton kind of had a 0-3 skid last week at 7-8.
Dalton, are we going to get it back?
Listen, 1 week at a time right now. If I can just take one game over her every week, I'll be back in the lead before we know it. I have no doubts I'll lead by the end of the season.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Of course, that was Dalton Salines and Riley Orovitz on this week's weekly Twigs Overtime. Thank you guys so much. Be sure to check out all their coverage on WRUF.com. Of course, they're going to have the preview on Friday, as well as the fantasy preview in addition to that, and, of course, all the recaps for next week. Dalton, Riley, thank you guys so much for coming on to Twigs Overtime.
This place is rocking. And a flag goes down. This could be a false start.
False start. Offense, number 71. 5-yard penalty. Stepping down.
Credit the crowd. And he takes the shotgun snap. Fires. Intercepted at the 20 by Castell. Along the far side, numbers down.
Joined here by Jesse Bratman, of course, our WRUF men's basketball beat reporter. He'll have coverage for you all season long, also in the preseason, as he's been out at men's basketball availability over the past couple of weeks. Now, Jesse, let's talk rankings. Of course, ESPN has Florida coming in at number 2 in their preseason poll, right behind Purdue and ahead of Houston, UConn, and St. John's. Pretty elite company there. What is your initial reaction to Florida landing at number 2? Too high, just right, or maybe even underrated?
I know the sentiment online, especially from Florida fans, obviously, is why aren't we number 1? Which I think is a fair concern, but I really think number 2 is a very fair place to put Florida. We lost Walter Clayton Jr., Elijah Martin, and Will Richard, our 3 leaders, our 3 best scorers, and that takes a toll on a team. To be number 2 after losing those 3 players is amazing. And I think Purdue, they have Braden Smith on that roster, who is probably going to be the Naismith Player of the Year, maybe DeBanza from BYU, but Braden Smith is the best point guard in the nation. Trey Croft-McGren is one of the best big men in the nation, and Fletcher Lawyer is one of the best small forwards in the nation. And when they all have 3+ years of experience playing together and on Purdue, that's the best trio in college basketball, I would say. I'm not shocked that Purdue is number 1. They're the favorites to win the national championship this year. But do I think Florida compares very well with Purdue? Yes. If I think we have a chance to beat them if we ever play them in the tournament, yes. But this ranking right now, I really don't see any issue with Florida being 2. And honestly, I think it's probably good for the Gators. Give them a little something, motivation. Give them something to look forward to. Coming off of a national championship and then being the number 1 preseason ranked team, I can only see problems with, being complacent, a little cocky. So I think that, a little punch in the mouth isn't that bad, and being number 2, is that really a punch in the mouth? So I think the ranking is very fair.
We'll keep it right there, Jesse.
Okay.
We'll keep the ball right there. When you look at Purdue sitting at number 1, you mentioned sort of what they bring to the table this year. What separates Purdue from Florida right now?
I just think their experience and their camaraderie together. Florida has an entirely new backcourt. Purdue doesn't. They have Trey Galvin and Braden Smith returning. Fletcher Lawyer also, he's kind of a 3, but plays very well with the guards. So I just think the consistency is there for Purdue, something you really don't see in this era of college basketball with the transfer portal, with NIL. Florida has that with its backcourt. I think Florida has a better backcourt, but overall what I think separates Purdue and Matt Painter is their consistency, their teamwork. They have a script. They know what it feels like to be punched in the mouth. Obviously, they don't have the best history in the NCAA tournament, losing to Fairleigh Dickinson a couple of years ago as a 16 seed, or as a 1 when they were a 1 seed. So I think this team is the most talented team in the nation just because of their teamwork. They know each other, they know what works, and they are so talented.
Houston, UConn, St. John's, Louisville. Among those teams, who poses the biggest challenge for Florida this season?
I think the biggest challenge for Florida has got to be St. John's. I think they have the best transfer roster that we've seen. Ian Jackson coming from North Carolina as a 5-star recruit, and then you have Zuby Ejiofor returning, who's one of the most dominant big men in the nation. R.J. Lewis left, but they struck gold with all the transfer talent that they have. And Rick Pitino is an amazing coach, and I think St. John's is going to run away with the Big East. I think they have 10 players that can legitimately give great minutes, and they're athletic. They're long. They're athletic, and I think St. John's could be the number 1 team in the nation very soon during this season, especially under Patino. So if they go head to head with Florida, just the sheer amount of guard depth that St. John's has, I think they go toe to toe with Florida. I would not be surprised if St. John's were to win that game. That being said, their Big East companion UConn, I'm really not that high on this year. I think number 4 is very generous for UConn. They got Silas Demery from Georgia, another SEC foe that gave Florida, a hard time, but they lost a lot of talent, especially when they went back-to-back a couple of years ago. The only really main returner of that core is Alex Caravan, who is not – he was the least talented of, that core group of your McNeelys and your Donovan Klingons and your Stephon Castles. They have Terrace Reed returning, but I think number 4 for UConn, yes, Dan Hurley is one of the best coaches in the nation, but I think St. John's is going to run away with the Big East. I think they'll beat them home and away, and I'm just really not that high on UConn, and that number 4 ranking to me seems very generous.
Keeping the ball right there once again. Keeping the ball in your hands, Jesse. You're taking us home.
I got to spin it.
Taking us home. When you look, moving on to the schedule now, when you look at one key matchup, especially early on in the 2025-2026 schedule for Florida, what's one matchup that you can't wait to watch?
Honestly, the first matchup of the year against Arizona, who is ranked number 13 in the country right now. They have the number 2 recruiting class in the country. They have 2 5-stars, Braden Berries and Koa Pete, who are both very physically imposing forwards. And there is no team that doesn't want to punch the defending national champions in the mouth in Las Vegas to start their season. I think if Florida doesn't come out of the gates firing, I know Arizona will. And it's going to be very hard to play catch-up, and that is a matchup that I think will set the tone for the entire season. I think if we go out and beat a ranked team in Arizona in the first game of the season, that will send a message that last year's championship, losing all those players, was not a fluke. This is Florida basketball. This is a quote-unquote blue blood. I know they're not, but this is a team that came to play, and if we beat number 13 Arizona in Las Vegas, I think that is a matchup I'm really, really looking forward to seeing.
All right, we'll have to wait and see how that one plays out. Bring it back over here. Last question as we wrap up here on Twigs Overtime. Jesse, of course, you've been out at media availability. What's one question that you have yet to ask that you're looking forward to ask next week for Gators men's basketball?
One question I would love to ask is how game ready do you feel? And to whatever player it is, you can only do so much at practice. You can only do so many scrimmages, but once you actually get in the game, once you get into especially a neutral environment where you don't have the O-Dome to support you, you don't have your fans, how is your game playing in practice going to translate to the actual floor against Arizona? I'm very curious to see. We have scrimmages scheduled against Illinois on October 25th, but that honestly isn't going to be game speed. Nothing is game speed until you're actually in the game. And the Gators have had history of getting punched in the mouth. We saw it last year against Georgia, a team that we should have beaten by 10. We trailed the entire game, and we lost that game because we came out slow. And I just know that, especially the returning front court, they know how detrimental starting slow can be, even against South Carolina last year, one of the worst teams in the SEC. We won by a Will Richard buzzer beater because we started out slow. And so that's definitely going to be a message by Todd Golden to his players, and that's definitely a question I would ask is, how do we not slouch slow against Arizona? How do we stay game ready? So.
Well, we know who's always game ready. That's Jesse Bratman, and you've heard from him here on WRUF Twigs Overtime. Jesse, thank you for joining us. We'll be sure to check out all your coverage on WRUF.com before the season, during the season, and also after the season as well. Jesse, again, thank you.
Let me just say this here. How about my guys? Yeah!
That'll do it for this week in Gator Sports Overtime. I'm Shamar Woods. I'm going to thank all of our WRUF beat reporters for joining us on today's show. Make sure you check out all their coverage on WRUF.com and on WRUF social channels. They've been working hard all week to bring you extra coverage and analysis. Up next, Gator Talk with Billy Napier as he sits down with the voice of the Gators, Sean Kelly. He'll get you set and ready to go for Saturday's kickoff against Texas A&M. Stick around. Kickoff prep starts now.